plus our city staff that's got to plow it. So I mean, these are all numbers that we kind of need to go with this, and I kind of wish that was in this presentation. But I think I think it's something we really need to look at, so if you can.
So while we can't predict all of this, the city maintenance costs, we can give you an idea from experience and what we've built before and how other cities and agencies have operated, and then give you some comparison costs. It won't all be new costs, though. I know you mentioned like plowing, and there's some plowing that occurs there now, I believe, correct? So it's not all going to be new. It's some of it will be different, some of it might be the same cost, and then remembering as well that just because this is, you're putting a new building there, for example, so you're gonna have to deal with heating and so on. Those type of things now are efficient and advanced, so your costs aren't going to be astronomical, but they may be different or a little bit more than what you have there now, because it is an open garage.
One thing is, the note of the parking garage, if hopefully development goes above it, and you don't have that plowing of the garage with salt in the garage, which is one of the biggest things, obviously, that has deteriorated the garage to this point, right? And so that would be a great benefit. Hopefully that happens, so they, build and go right above it, the whole thing, and then it's covered. That's ideal, right? Because then you don't have some of those costs. They do go away. Again, no matter what you build, there's maintenance cost here. We have upkeep. That is there no matter what we do. There's no job we've ever built that you don't have to maintain. There's not one.
And of course, you don't want to get in the predicament of investing in this large project now and then not maintaining it as it should be each year. I think that's what you're getting. We had a discussion out in the hallways similar to that. It's also worth mentioning that when we're thinking through and what we've thought through already in the schematic design, there's elements incorporated now that prevent you, so while you may be paying more upfront, your maintenance costs are less in the long run, and or more efficient. So for example, what we've got proposed on the bus island is a snow melt system. And what that does is it relieves, I think, the DPW from having to get out there every single snowfall and either shovel, plow, salt, all things which damage whatever type of pavement you're working on, whether it's concrete, pavers, whatever it be. So there's things like that we're trying to incorporate into the design without, increasing costs, that are just smart decisions and sustainable for the city.
Is it operated by electric?
Yeah, it's a boiler system.
Oh, it is a boiler.
It's a boiler system, and so and therefore, heat would also be.
Further questions, Councilman?
Regarding the stair tower, I agree. This is the first that I heard that it's in the stair tower. I actually remember in previous conversations talking about from a safety standpoint, it being better that the tower is more open and more visible. So I understand the need for the change, but I'm concerned about the security. So I was hoping that you could speak more to that.
It will still be visible. So when we say in enclosed, we just mean it's, weather's not going to get into it, rain, snow is not going to get into the tower. There is a lot of glazing that is proposed, a lot of lighting. So wherever you would be in the stair tower, essentially there is visibility somewhere into it through glazing. Because I agree with you, stair towers, they have to be visible, they have to be bright. That's the only way somebody's gonna want to use it. And hopefully prevent any type of vandalism to it. So we are closing it, but that does not mean you cannot see into it, and it is not brightly lit and visible through glazing.
We can share.
So that's what I mean when I say enclosed. I don't mean no glass.
And in the schematic drawings that we have some elevations that show you potentially what that would look like. You can see how sort of open and the sight lines all the way around it. Additionally, we've got a lighting and CCTV security cameras.
Security.
Yes.
Go ahead.
That was, sorry, you know.
I love that one.
So along the lines of security, is it just in the tower or is it throughout?
It's throughout.
Good,
The
and
plan
then,
is for for, I understand there's cameras, there now, but the intent, whether it's a surface lot or something that's built above, is that there's a security.
And LED lighting, making sure that everything is lit up,
Well,
whether it's the lot or the garage.
Absolutely.
Further questions, Tom?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so the separate demo package, you had mentioned that it's $400,000, and I see it reflected in our project estimation here under architecture, engineering, construction management. You mentioned that you are also doing, because you have to do separate bid packet, so does that $400,000 go to your contract, to your firm?
a portion of it does.
Okay.
Okay, so we're preparing a separate set of bid documents, pulling out specific design, separating the work. And a portion of that, so that 10 to 15% that I spoke of, when you separate, sort of work packages, is a combination of contractor costs. So I had mentioned, like mobilization, demobilization, which means when they come to the site, they set up and then they leave. So you'll be incurring additional costs there simply because it's a separate set of work that happens earlier than the rest of the work, okay? It does include some consultant design fees to specifically put that package out separately. Other, I guess I would file them under miscellaneous, contractor costs. So there's things like overhead, there's things like, general conditions and their insurance and, that falls under that.
So they also have to install, not necessarily temporary fencing, it's more permanent, because depending on when the packages overlap, when the next contractor comes in after the demolition contractor is done. If it was a typical construction site, you have temporary fencing that's maintained by a contractor. Now, when they leave, it has to be a secure site for them. Everything has to be secure. So there's some overlap. To be honest, that's a part of what you're paying for. That falls into that. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, at this point, thank you very much. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
At this point, I'd like to invite our gallery, citizens of the community. If you have a question of our representatives here from Glenbrook, Sean and Liz, or if you have a question for our city administrator relative to cost or any other specifications, the numbers that you may be able to bring to you. Answer those questions. This would be a great time, and just if you would just introduce yourself and where you live, and a couple 3 minutes would probably be a good length of time for all of you. So if you would.
Hi, my name is David Grant. I live on the 32 Chestnut Street, 30 Chestnut Street.
Okay.
Just a quick question. I have a concern when listening to all this. What's the current parking garage parking spaces, and how many parking spaces would be in the new one? When we have a snow emergency, the current one is at capacity in full. So I mean, we're still gonna have a parking issue when there's a snow emergency.
So I'm gonna answer part of it, then I'm gonna correct you answer parts of it. Your existing garage is about 400, a little over 400.
33.
433, thank you. I was gonna say 423, that was close. In the schematic plan with the surface, parking, and then the one level deck is about 200.
About 200. roughly.
So there's a 200, parking space difference there. However,
For 200 for the. The two
Two
levels.
level.
Two levels, yeah, yeah.
Two
100, about 100 below.
yes,
Yeah, so to address the concern about snow emergency parking, it's a good point. Certainly that's the only time that the parking garage is completely full, that I've seen, especially, over the last 2.5 years, when I've really been paying attention. What we did 2 years ago, we offered a shuttle, which we're actually doing now, but during the winter, we offered the shuttle when there was a snow emergency that went through Newar Park to Damascus Field parking lot. It wasn't utilized then because it really wasn't needed. We thought it might help, but we ended that. That would certainly be available this winter and moving forward. We can clear that Damascus Field lot. We're talking about possibly chip sealing and striping it, so it's a little bit easier to find your way around and get organized, but that would provide a place for people to go where presently or previously they went to the parking garage.
Yes, Paul.
Paul Conway, I was a professor at SUNY Open Matter for 40 years and I lived here on the other 30. I'm wondering if the council has considered the possibility of a different location for the transportation center, particularly the old railroad station, now still alone, and whether purchasing it and renovating it would be a cost savings and long-term benefit, given the historical importance of the place, and also the potential to use that facility for a variety of purposes, maybe using imaginative uses such as for tourism, for an information center, car rental, any number of things, maybe related to the historical society, Greater Oneonta Historical Center as well. But if the council would consider the possible use of that facility as a transportation hub, I think it might be a short-term savings as well as a long-term benefit to the community in a way that it would have been wonderful if the community had still the roundhouse at the railroad facility that would have attracted so many people over the years to come to this community.
So I know that this is early iterations of those games. Do you want to address that?
Sure. Thank you for your question. Gosh, I think 4 years ago now, we did look at Stella Luna, the former train depot, as a site. And we actually did a building conditions, observation review of it as well, seriously considering it,
Yeah.
because we've done that elsewhere. It's great for a transit agency to then utilize, and a city to utilize a building like that, that is sort of an icon, right? A couple things on that. When we were doing the layouts, believe it or not, the site itself, so separate from the building, but the parking lot area was not large enough for the bus operation. And we must have done at least a half a dozen different bus layout sketches and test fits to see how we could maybe pair together sites next to it, or how we could bump out the street to even enlarge it to make the bus operation work. And what some of those decisions would have, or some of those effects rather, would have been that the city would have needed to acquire more property, property that's privately owned already, some which these property owners aren't willing to sell. And not only did we look at what we could do on the site there, but we even kind of realigned your road. So if you go back to your old maps, and we've done a lot of studying about Oneonta, we even reoriented and relayed out basically where the road hits and how Broad Street used to come down, and it was like a main sort of gateway. Even looked at sort of reimagining that, and how could the train station depot with the site and kind of making that as a solution to fit all together. The bottom line there is there wasn't enough space, and it would have required a lot of time and money on the city's part to have to go and then acquire those properties and then further develop them. So not to mention, and I think Sean, if you want to add here, but while it seems like the train depot is essentially super close to the existing parking structure 47 Market that we're talking about right now, it is just far enough away that if I can refer back to the downtown revitalization strategic initiative, you're looking for connection, and you're looking for that downtown from Main Street down to Market. And sort of redeveloping the Market Street corridor to be something more urban. And so the train station itself was just far enough away where we're talking about accessibility and
For the bus
pedestrian
riders.
connections,
It's
right?
pedestrian connection to bus riders.
And right now, how convenient is it that it's right on Main Street and it's kind of close and easy for everyone to get to? And so the thought there was that, and in our experience, it wasn't ideal. It wasn't as ideal as the current station location.
Yeah, well said. You know, again, the buses would have had to park on the street. They would have, because again, the site is too narrow for the program. They would have taken up more street space and again, changed a lot, but it was looked at, it was under serious consideration by everybody. Again, we did a building survey and looked at it significantly. It's a great building. Hope somebody does use it. Wish it would have worked out, but we could not make a promise.
Thank you very much. Yes, Teresa.
Greg, I was wondering, do you have?
Yeah, I'm sorry, just for.
Oh, Teresa, Becky, I actually live in West Oneonta. But I own Teresa's Emporium on Main Street. Okay. So, Greg, the parking study, do you have that yet? Because I've been,
The parking study is an ongoing iterative process. As we've just presented in
that's
a.
not gonna be available.
Yes, the goal of the parking strategies task force is to create a report that's presented to the council for consideration for how to implement paid parking or other parking strategies.
So about the study that you've done as far as.
Study I've done is collecting data. That's
Right.
in Excel format that'll be, consolidated and put in a presentable form that'll be part of that report. Absolutely.
Okay, so about when do you expect that?
Our goal is to have that report to council at the end of this summer.
Okay. Now you talk about parking, during a snowstorm. From what I understand, this is gonna be permit parking, a lot of it in the new area. If that's the case, who gets to park there during a snowstorm? People with permits? People that live in East End that can't park in their front of their houses? How does that work?
Well, one of the concepts of permanent parking, if you have metered parking downtown. On street, and if you have hourly parking or all day parking in the lots or the garage. You have to accommodate, or you want to accommodate residents and commuters, business owners, employees. And having a monthly permit pass as opposed to have to pay hourly, obviously makes a lot of sense. Those spaces wouldn't be designated, this is your space as a permit holder, there would be certain areas that you are allowed to park, for instance. A permit holder wouldn't be allowed to use their permit to park on Main Street or in, say, the Wall Street lot, because those are the most accessible to the most businesses where interactions happening. That's where we want to have high turnover. A lot of vehicles coming in and out an hour to whatever time they need to shop or dine and that sort of thing, not park there all day or all night. Whereas like in the lots is where we want those people. So that would be determined exactly how that would work, but that's the general concept. As far as snow emergency parking, there's, the city's never guaranteed that everyone can park their car in a city lot during a snow emergency. Obviously, most people are able to get off the street, and a lot of people into their garage or driveways. For those who don't have that option, we've allowed them to park with the residents. And I think it would be a similar situation where you wouldn't need to have a parking permit to park in the garage or the lots. That kind of be open to everyone for the duration of snow emergency. And again, with the Damasky lot, the Newall lot, we've got huge capacity in Newall Park. It's just a matter of how much we're able to clear and how many spaces we need to clear to allow people to get off the street. So I foresee that combined with the shuttle that would help connect people back to Center City, alleviating that concern.
And the permit parking, has there been any discussion about how much it's going to cost? I checked like Albany, it's like $100 a month. And I know they're bigger than we are, but $100 per person that works there a month to.
That's not a number we've talked about. In fact, we haven't really gotten to the point of talking numbers yet. We're looking at the technology that's available, what it would take to implement the paid parking system, if that's what we're going.
That's what will be helping to pay for the $10 million bond.
That's correct. Right, both the parking permits and hourly
Yeah.
metered parking will help people pay for that bond payment.
Parking on, in Cooperstown is $2.50 an hour. So if you have to do that here,
That seems unlikely that we would be looking at Cooperstown level rates in the city of Oneonta, but any further questions, Teresa?
yes, how many trailway buses come through in a day? Now, at this time,
Typically 6 per day. Thanks, Dave.
Before I leave, further questions, Teresa?
nope, all set.
Okay.
Kimber Rogers, I'm one of the owners of Lux Studio right at 254 Main. So for the people that work on Main Street, a lot of times they work 10-hour days. So is there specific areas that are included with all of this that would be more like long-term parking for me? park at all day.
Yeah, we're gonna issue another update to our parking map. We sent a PSA out last week that had that, and we're gonna issue another one, and the mayor's been working on making that more user friendly. On the public, so and I'm happy to talk with you personally or whoever else wants to give us a call and talk about where is best for your business or your residents, but there's definitely gonna be enough all-day parking. We're adding some.
I appreciated the new map. It was a lot easier to read. And I think that's the thing, like, I don't mind being shuttled. I don't mind getting to work early, but if I'm working till 9, if the shuttle's not going anymore, like, I don't want to walk all the way to Yellow Park. It just doesn't seem.
Oh, no.
Yeah, just quickly, Deep Street lot, the new section, I call it the south section, is behind the new building. That's all public parking. I think there were some people out there who maybe thought that was gonna be private parking. It's all city parking lot. And that's open now. That's 24-hour all day parking. So you can park there. Also, there's some all day spots in the northern section, the Deeds lot. We're gonna be adding some spots along Market Street. There's, and again, you've seen the map, but we're gonna try to have a good mix of all day.
Could you try to speak a little louder?
Oh, yes, I can.
Mumbling, I can't hear, I'm not catching everything you're answering, so it'd be very helpful if you do that.
I'm sorry.
Yes, right next door.
Hi, I'm Leah. I own Hair of the Dog on Water Street. And just like thinking of future, like when this project starts, what's it gonna look like for businesses on Water Street? Like I think of just like my day-to-day. I only have the one door on Water Street, so, and then, you know, I work with dogs, so I'm thinking of like demolition, like big booms, and is it gonna be safe? Do I have to shut down? You know, things like that, so.
So the best way I can say that, like, when construction, like, before that starts,
Yeah.
obviously. We've got to meet with all the owners along the street to make sure you understand what's going on, coordinate it so that you do have safe access.
Yeah,
Obviously with dogs, I understand that. You know, it's not quiet, demolition is
Right.
never and things like that,
Yeah.
but again, that can all be worked through.
Yeah.
There's requirements of contractors, and again, there's gonna be points when it's gonna be difficult,
yeah,
that's the truth.
Yeah.
But we're gonna try to limit that as much as we can.
yeah,
So, as Liz said, when they knock down the ramp, that opens up a lot of opportunity, because that's kind of under the new street. Or the new portion of the street, so we can do a lot of utility work there, so it does limit the disruption to the entire street, it's great.
Mhm.
But again, like, once that plan kind of goes further on, we do have to meet with everybody and kind of sit down and say, here's what's gonna go on, and then get feedback, because. That's how we're gonna know what's gonna work best for everybody. I mean, that's part of the collaboration. We wanna hear that, wanna work it out, because. I know the city, you know, they wanna work and make sure everything's okay, you know, it's not gonna be perfect. It never is during construction, but.
There will be full traffic and pedestrian plans in place.
okay, awesome. Yeah, that's what I was mainly wondering, because with the Springbrook project, you know, I've worked through all of that construction and stuff, which is whatever we do what we gotta do, but
Right.
I never heard from anybody about any of that, so like going into work and then there's a crane hanging, swinging above my client's heads, like it's kind of scary. So just knowing beforehand would be so awesome.
Gonna go to the back row.
My name is Dick Kavanaugh. I've been here since 1964, not in this seat. But in this. I would like to recommend that this council please put cushions on these.
Sorry, Dick.
Anyway, we have a current problem right now, and the current problem is we lack parking. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We lack parking. Now, the suggestion that I have is, number one, the shuttle in New York Park is fine. Is the Oneonta Police Department going to patrol that area? Because in my opinion, with what's going on in our country, vandalism, theft, it's inviting that if that's not patrolled. I don't want to leave my car down there and come out of work and find out my converter's gone or somebody broke in and is living in it. So I just don't want that to happen. You think it can't happen in the city? It can happen in the city. The other thing is I want to make a proposal to the council. Mayor, you've heard me say this. Until we have a new parking garage, there should not be any parking tickets issued in the city of Oneonta. That's my opinion. Thank you.
I just heard about this meeting this morning around 10 o'clock.
So I didn't know what to expect, what the meeting was about, or anything like that. So while thinking about it this morning, I was thinking about all the conversations I've heard with a lot of people. So this is not directed to the new development, but communication and listening to the constituents of Oneonta. So let me start. Okay, so I meet with many friends downtown, for lunch and or dinner on the same day, depending. And for quite some time, the parking garage has been the topic of many conversations with unanswered questions and concerns. So I'm sort of the messenger here. The facts. It's been reported through the years that the garage had been inspected. It's been reported in the last several years, repairs have been made. Therefore, the question which comes up, the question arises, how could there suddenly appear unexpected defects that caused immediate closing of the garage? Who did the previous inspections? What were the dates of the inspections? What were the problems? And were the problems taken care of? That's the questions that have been coming up. And if, as a homeowner, you would be asking those questions also. Fact, parking changes have been made because we had to close the garage. For visitors and residents driving into the city looking for parking, where is the signage? To inform them of locations of additional parking in Neowa Park and to inform them about the shuttle and its schedule. I'm driving into a town, I don't know where the heck I'm going, what am I going to do? Okay, fact, there's a lack of communication about important matters, or there's only last minute notification from City Hall. Case in point, this meeting. For example, this meeting was not adequately advertised. Many people no longer get the Daily Star or get the weekend editions. Digressing just for a minute to make a point. If I had asked you, if I right now asked you to list the areas of city life that come under the domain of the Common Council, you might include parks, police and fire department, streets, permits, sewage, water, public buildings, seasonal items such as plowing and street repair. If we continue the list, it's almost endless. And with that in mind, and thinking about communication between city and residents, I'll read the notice for the meeting in the Oneonta Star. And here's the notice from Wednesday. Oneonta City Common Council Special Session, 6:30 p.m., Common Council Chambers, City Hall, 258 Main Street. Which one of that long list were you going to talk about today? We had no indication. So, please, in conclusion, please listen to what people have, what people's concerns are about the need for a parking garage for now and the future growth of Oneonta. We were concerned at the big parking committee meeting several weeks ago. We were concerned from going 3 levels to 2 levels when after the current garage was built, there was 3 levels and we needed 4. So now we're going from how many years ago needing 4, reducing it to 2. And tonight I'm hearing 1. Okay, and also in conclusion, please think about communicating better with the constituents that you represent. And this one, and thinking about the overused but very important term of transparency. So, but before I close, I'd like to thank you for all the effort you put into this. Looking at all these numbers today and all the things you have to think about, I know are extremely, extremely time consuming and difficult to learn all the ins and outs when you're not an engineer. But at the same time, we are humans and we need to communicate and you need to listen to us. And as I've said before, please listen to the business community. They have ridden through the ups and downs of Oneonta's prosperity and I don't know if the opposite of that, non-prosperity. They have survived And the last, one of the meetings I came to, I said, so-and-so's been in business for 20 years, so-and-so's been in 35, and I was aghast. I've been in business for 50 years at my present location. Please listen to them because they have survived in an urban environment. And some of you have different jobs that have different pressures than wondering if you can pay your employees. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I'm Sophie Richardson, I forgot to say, 143 Main Street, long-term resident, businesswoman, and what am I, landlord.
Thank you, Sophie.
Bob Holstead, I live at 3 Center Street, Oneonta, and 47 of my 85 years I've been here in the city. I'm looking ahead to most projects of this scope. There's a clerk of the works that's usually hired to make sure the contractors do the specs that they did on. Is there any, who's gonna do that for the city?
Can you address it?
Well, as part of Wendell's, our consultants contracts to provide construction administration services.
I mean, day to day, you know.
Feedback
Yeah.
is included.
Yeah.
So we provided, in our proposal, in our contract, a level of, on-site presence, observation, and, construction management. So that would be the day-to-day, that would be, making sure the contractors are doing their work. In addition to that, our design team was a piece of that, scope of work as well. So our architects and engineers need to come out and do their site visits too, to ensure that things are done properly.
So it's your folks, your staff.
Correct.
Yeah. Do we have any? Yes.
My name is Nancy Matheson. I've only been here, I think, for 3 or 4 years. So, hey, whatever. I have a couple of questions about, one, what are the car charging plans? I think you sort of mentioned it, but also, why can't the demolition of the next door, what is it, 27? Why can't that be combined with the garage demolition? Wouldn't it be cheaper to combine them? And third, having looked at it, I think it is absolutely a missed opportunity not to extend this plan to include Stella Luna and to, by hook or by crook, obtain that empty space in between Stella Luna and Foothills and move the center of the city. You're talking about as it is and not thinking about what it could be.
So we're gonna take those as we can remember the first is the EV charging stations.
So the charging stations, I can't say how many exactly there will be, but the intent is to put several of them, 10 or more, in the parking garage or lot that's built.
Will they be by time, by kilowatt hour, who's gonna get the money?
The city receives the income from that. Obviously, we're paying the bill for the electric. So we would price it according to what the cost is to cover our costs. I can't say if it would be per hour or per kilowatt hour at this point. The charging station that we have now, we have a set of 2 ports in the street parking lot that the council had previously authorized, though we haven't implemented yet because it's been out of service since the construction project. It's getting back in service relatively soon. I believe the council had authorized a $2 per hour charge for that moving forward. We'll revisit that and see if that's appropriate, given it's been a year and a
You
half.
said $2 an hour?
$2 per hour. We have to revisit that to see if that's covering our costs or what it is, but obviously it also depends on how many people are using the station. The intent of installing that one, which we got through a grant, was to just introduce it into downtown. It's a, emerging need, and the pricing will essentially be priced to cover our costs. We're not looking to make a profit on that, but we need to cover the costs.
And Greg, I'm gonna ask you to just continue on. We'll talk about the 2 demolitions, why we might not be able to do those at the same time. It may be a cost savings, but we have, there are.
Right, we had progressed the 27 Market Street demolition design package with a different consultant. It had always been a different project. It wasn't associated with this. That one is probably gonna be ready to go out to bid a little bit sooner. By a little bit than the garage demolition, and realistically, we talked about the concept of combining the projects and putting them out together, but we were advanced to a point with two different consultants that at that point, it would kind of be requiring some rework, and I think it would have cost more and taken a little bit more time. And our goal is to bring down 27 Market Street, as quickly as we can. And then that site's available for temporary parking, if needed for, during the construction of the garage. But it's a good question, though.
Thank you. Further questions, anyone? Yes.
Tyler Walsh, I'm creating a quick thing on Main Street. Between the new Springbrook apartments and the new Deep Street apartments, how many residents are we expecting?
We're between the two of them, I think we're a little bit over 80.
80 collectively?
Yeah.
And so if we went down to the one level parking garage, you said it was about 100 spaces. And is that like, for pretty much all the research, have we been taking that into account? I mean, just, 3/4 of those people alone have cars, the lot's pretty much filled up.
Our expectation is that it's less than that 3/4, but Greg, I'll let you talk about the.
Yeah, and talking with Ken Carney, the developer of the Deep Street lofts, he's interested and thinks that they'll need about 35 monthly parking permits for the residents. They have 64 units going in, so that's not quite, you mentioned 3/4, so I think that's based on his experience in other developments elsewhere, that he doesn't expect quite that many of his residents to have cars. Using that same percentage, 55% or so, and applying that to Springbrook apartments, which are 24. And these are all mostly singles. There's some doubles in each of them. You're talking another 10, 12 cars. So in the data that Teresa was asking about earlier, I have been projecting some additional cars, residents living downtown based on those developments, and even beyond that. So we are thinking about that.
And then a second question, if we did go to one level, do we still need the stair tower that we were speaking about, if it's just a one level parking garage? And what's the need for the stair tower for only one level?
Sure, so the stair tower does connect to the Main Street Bridge, so in order to keep that operational, you would need the stair tower for that, and also. It does provide accessibility because obviously Chestnut Street is pretty steep, so somebody who is in a wheelchair, that is a great mechanism for them to get down to it. That stair tower would come down, it would connect to Water Street. I realize you can do that in the building right now that next to the Main Street Bridge. But again, that's just another way to bring them down. If they're on Water Street, want to go down to Market, do that.
So have we explored putting some sort of elevator in that building that you're speaking of?
It is. When we say stair tower, it would be stair and elevator. I'm sorry.
But I'm saying, if we didn't need that actual stair and elevator tower and put an elevator in that current area where the current bridge meets on the first floor to get people to the second floor, wouldn't that kind of cover the accessibility aspect of things?
Instead of a stair, just an elevator, is that what you're asking?
No, I'm saying like the building right now, where it actually meets the bridge. If we put an elevator just in there compared to building a whole separate stair tower just to put an elevator in, is that on the table? Is that?
I can answer that one. There actually is an elevator being installed there by the Springbrook project, paid for by the city through a grant agreement, so that's publicly accessible as well as accessible or accessing their apartments. So in what we call the arcade between the end of the bridge and Main Street, that will have an elevator. Obviously, that's gonna go from Main Street level down to Water Street level. It's not gonna get you down to the Market Street level, which I think is really the need for the elevator at the stair tower to be able to have that accessibility from the Market Street level up. And obviously, as Sean was talking about before, if there is a development above, then that stair tower is part of that. So if you go up higher, it has the abilities to do that.
Question, yes.
My name's Jody. I live in, anyways, you guys have the bridge thing right now that's going over to the parking garage. Now you want to build a turnaround that you're saying trucks can't get in there now and they have to back up on the Chesapeake extension. It's only so many feet. So how are you gonna do that and do that little turnaround?
Liz, Sean, you want to?
That
Yeah, so the turnaround occurs before the bridge. we've run the auto turn for the trucks to like box trucks to be able to figure out how to turn around. So that occurs before the bridge, so they don't have to go underneath. So we've looked at the turning movements of vehicles and I mean, we have it drawn up, it's.
Just a quick
Yeah.
piggyback on that. What's the largest size truck that you've done the projections for accessibility?
God, I will check that, I don't remember the size of the truck, it was a box, it's not a semi cannot do that.
Right.
That cannot happen, but I would actually check on the side of that.
Yeah, because there's some
Maybe the
larger,
exact-
I mean, that's kind of like the delivery hub
Yeah,
for a
oh
lot
yeah,
of Main Street there.
Yep.
So you have some larger trucks, not semis,
Yeah.
but some larger box trucks, refrigerator trucks, things like that that go down that
So-
street that.
as it gets bigger, they can do a 3-point turn down there, depending on how it is, depending on when the, if it's in the middle of the day and there's a lot of people there, that's not ideal. Get that,
Right.
you know, as you point out with the bridge is that we have limited movement to how to do that. We have looked at it, the bigger trucks would require a 3-point turn, but we don't want them backing down the street, like that's
Right.
the worst of the two is backing down the whole street versus doing a 3-point turn.
And the goal that we're trying to maintain is not to change too much of how they operate now, deliveries. And with, I understand larger tractor trailers may park on Chestnut and then deliver. Additionally, the same thing, because we understand that the larger trucks, even fire trucks, can't make the bridge, they can't make the turn, first of all, and the bridge is too low. So addressing all of those, and we can
Yeah.
certainly provide, as we brand what we call the auto turn, which is our the truck movements, we can provide those to the council to show.
I mean, you know, and that's, we've run it, again, some trucks can make it, and as you get bigger, they gotta do more point turn, there's no way around it, and of course, that was Jim Seymour.
I'm sorry, Jim Seymour.
Fixed.
Yes, Kathy.
With the parking garage, and it's only gonna be about 100 and 100 in that two levels.
That's correct.
You're losing 88 parking spaces. With 3 levels, and you got 400? Was it 400? 433, yeah, 432. 432 divided by 3 is 144 spaces on each level.
It's a smaller footprint car.
And it's a smaller footprint.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's kind of short-sighted not to put a third level on, or to at least have it there in the future. If you want to expand, every time you expand and you bring people downtown, you're going to need some parking. So there has to be a little bit more foresight for what's coming in the future, instead of pulling it back. If you said something about the east end of the design, if you don't do that, you're gonna save $8 million. 1.3. Yeah, 1.3, okay, I thought I saw 8, because it went from 35 to 21.
Correct, with the combination of the items was $8 million. So you're speaking on the east end of Market Street. That was the 1.3.
Okay, well, where did the 8 point, whatever, come to?
Can we put that slide
Because
back
we
up?
told us that, if that, if you're saving $8 million somewheres,
We're bringing that right back up.
you know, I'm just wondering, why not, put the third one on, I don't know how much it costs. Does it really make, is that enough for a third level? Or at least prepare it for a third level, because if you want to expand, you
Okay,
have
right.
to have parking.
So, additional cost reduction options totally paid, so that's a combination of. A future deck, so moving forward with, only a surface lot. So that's a 5.5 plus the, future east end of the Market Street work, which is the 1.3. Plus the reduction of the transit hub to a 1-story versus what it is schematically designed at right now, which is about a $2 million savings. That's where we're getting the.
So the surface lot is just the one level?
That's
Correct.
right. Yes.
Yeah. Still very short, so we just lost 100 parking spaces, and you've lost however many parking spaces over on Deeds. So
So
we already get the complaints about not having enough parking. And I know that you can walk, or you could park 3 blocks away, there's parking 3-4 blocks away, it's a very rural area. People are driving it from all over, and they want to come on the Main Street or as close as they can get to Main Street, get out of their car, do their business, get back in their car and go do what they need to do, because we drive everywhere. In big cities, you know.
Kathy,
Here we
thank you very much. Point is very well made. Thank you.
And I'm Kathy, and I'm in with Teresa, and Teresa's important.
Do we have anybody else that would like to speak? Yes.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Rockefeller of Yoga Poniata on Deep Street, so just representing some off Main Street businesses that are impacted by the flood of everything to Deep Street. I found out about the parking garage closing, like a lot of people, like an Instagram post or a social media post, and in that post it said, go to Deep Street instead, which was like, please don't, we already have enough trouble trying to get people in. One of the issues is with the construction, the one-way sign has gone away for the way that flow is supposed to go. I have a toddler, I bring her with me. The parking lot there is completely chaotic at all times. I was curious why businesses weren't notified of changes so that we could at least notify our customers, our clients. And for us, this is our slowest time of the year. We get really slow when all the tourism comes in, which unlike our Main Street friends is not the case. And so right now, any parking studies are not going to be showing anything like what we're expecting in September when our people come back. And you know, we're just clawing our way out of the lockdown. We have only been at full capacity since November. And so our classes are continuously getting more and more full. The same with the Y, the same with some of the other practitioners in the building. Our building is just getting more and more full as people are coming back to business, and there's nowhere for our clients to park because a lot of those parking spots are taken up by people who are either there all day because they can't be parking in the garage. There's no talk about the Neoa Park potential for a shuttle. Like that wasn't communicated well, so that information, we can't tell other people that, and it's just that it seems like there could be, I think, a lot of communication that could go better, but then what everybody, I think almost everyone who's spoken has said is like this math problem that we're having where we're going from 432 spaces that do fill up to 100 maybe. And of those, we're talking maybe even 50 of them are going to be with new residents. And then of that, there's also the permitted parking for businesses. And I'm just not seeing how we could ever make 100 parking spaces work. And then on top of that, it's going to be paid for parking. So if it's parking that you're paying for, as all these businesses on Main Street have to lift their costs just to stay in business and keep tied with everything else that's increasing. Now we're adding a parking fee on that. So in my business, I just had to raise my single class drop-in by $4. If somebody now has to pay $2 an hour to come to that class, that means there's a $20 outing. And then on top of that, it's probably going to be a little bit more if they want to go to Main Street, which we should encourage. And so it seems like all of the changes are also tied into paid parking. And if you're paying to park and then there's less parking, it seems like we're basically setting ourselves up to not have any foot traffic downtown.
Appreciate that. So I'll speak to the communications piece. Again, as everyone knows, it seems like we've been talking this for a very long time. We closed the garage a couple weeks ago. So we're flying, trying to determine all the various parking areas that we can direct people to, modifying the types of parking spaces, the locations of parking spaces, finding new parking spaces. Market Street is a good example, about 47 of them there. We've just now reinstituted the 2 and 4 hour parking around the plaza there. That used to be called the Carson Plaza. I don't know what it's called anymore, but around the plaza there. So you've got your 2 hour parking, you have your 4 hour parking. The rest of it is 24 hour parking. The shuttle service is a brand new feature. We've only really been running it since Monday or Tuesday, today's Thursday. So
just even getting the information out about that in terms of map, I think I finished something on Tuesday. So we're flying, and at this very same time, I'm personally connecting with folks who own service parking. Whether they're churches or they're businesses or whatever, so that we might be able to determine some short-term access over various days. We're working on a web app that will go to the promotion of that work. I'm enlisting folks that want to volunteer. Greg has done a wonderful job of counting cars. He continues to count cars. I think when we get on the other side of the parking garage, it'll be 5 years from now, you'll still be counting cars because this is what you do now. But I am enlisting people who want to count empty spaces in our lots, in the city lots, 8th Street and on the street. 9 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and 5 p.m. We'll wind up putting all of that information out in real time. In those hours, 9, 1, and 5, so we can start to determine where our most congested areas are in the city, what we might need to do around that, where our emptier spots are. The communication around our shuttle service is something that the days are long. That as soon as I can get myself a couple of hours, and I think that's certainly going to happen between now and Friday, tomorrow, that even more so is going to be on my agenda to ensure that we're getting out that information. Social media is obviously a great place, but not everybody sees the same feeds. So we will be putting maps that are posters. We'll be advertising the things that we in fact have going on in town. We have an engagement marketing committee that's coming up with various promotions and things for locals and for tourists. So we'll be advertising not only where the parking is, but also what's going on around town. We'll replace those fairly regularly. You'll get tired of seeing my face. We'll get tired of seeing your 8th Ward council member's face. But we will get the information out to you. It's going to be a challenge. I continue to say, because we can invent what we don't have. We have what we have. We're going to be creative. I tell people, in fact, that our parking, our slogan is our parking is inventive, but it's convenient. If you know where to park, you'll be fine. The key is to make sure that everybody knows where to park and that we know where our empty spaces are, and there are empty spaces. So until we get to the place where we find ourselves totally maxed out, we're not yet in the panic mode. I'm not saying we won't get there, but we're not currently in a panic mode. Additional questions?
Jim Seymour again. As far as the actual building and the transit hub, the number is like 7.5 million for the building.
For the building.
Right.
Buildings, I think that's not, somewhere around, yeah. Trying to remember the exact number.
That thing is, I don't know, a lot for a small 2-story building.
So.
Is that a breakdown, like something that we can look at, like why it's so
I mean,
expensive?
so the thing I can tell you, so all transit projects are Buy America compliant, which means every product on it is made in the US.
Okay.
So you pay more for that. There's no way, that's the truth. Also, FDA requires the building to be about a 40 to 50 year life building. You pay, so you have more durable materials to go into.
Okay.
There's just some other things that go into it like that, that adds up quickly.
Okay.
Compared to other transit facilities that we do across the country, I will tell you, I was comparing costs because I said, gosh, they do seem high to me.
Yeah.
We're actually less per square foot than other facilities right now. The costs are just going through the roof. And again, it has to be durable. So we're looking at it. It can't just be like the best thing I can tell you, like you can't just do a typical floor. It has to be a floor that's gonna, if you have to replace the floor in 10 years, then that's done incorrectly.
Right.
And so we can't just do like a BCT floor. Like many of you might know that it's just a final tile floor essentially. That wears down, they have to replace it, it won't get replaced. There's the money, FTA is not going to give the transit agency more money to replace it.
Right.
So it's that all those durable materials add up to a cost.
Okay. Well, that information will be like disseminated to council, like you already have all that.
So the hard part on this is necessarily correct me if I'm wrong, the estimate can't get released because then contractors would get it and say, well, I'm gonna, like because you want a fair bidding environment, right? So
Such a detailed,
The detailed estimate.
Right, until
Can't
the
just-
bid is submitted and it's like the environment that the bid submitted
Yes.
in because of the changes, fluctuations.
Yeah, because we want, quite honestly, we want you to be, well, I know we all want you to get the best bidding price that you can. If you give too much information, then I'm not gonna lie, contractors choose that and then. Right. That's what happened.
Couple more questions, Bob.
Bob Brzezowski, 43 Church, Ward 7. Related to the cost of the transit hub, I was thinking the same thing, how expensive it is, and I hope that Stella Luna can stay in the mix somehow of maybe being just a part of the transit hub, or if not, having all the components of it. Second, I wonder if it's related to this project, or is it simply the DRI about the easier access for pedestrians between Market and Main Street? Or will, in the short term anyway, or the middle term, the walkway be the only place? I'm thinking of the famous Clarion fence, and when that's going to come down and people will be able to walk more easily between the two streets.
Joke about that. I can speak to that, Bob. Thank you. The Clarion gate and the fence, as you referred to it, that sidewalk that goes around the outside of the Ford Block building to Muller Plaza. We're working with Springbrook to get a permanent easement on that section for public access, and also to install a fence rather than just a gate. The fence would keep people from, going onto the Clarion or the Marks, I should call it Marks property. And allow that to be open all the time, so we have that public access. And we
The turning around won't affect that, the car turnaround, the truck.
right, no, that wouldn't be affected.
Yes.
Kathy.
Me?
Grow with you, I don't think she wants to hear.
Okay, okay, I just want two quick things. One, to speak to the lady who's not aware about the shuttle bus, or I think of it as the new little bus, the little free bus downtown. I believe I'm the only person who has traveled on it. So I went round and round and round in order to report back to the community conversations group and now to all of you. It's amazing. It's wonderful. It's quick. It's easy. It's free. It's like, but to segue into the Stella Luna issue, I think that bus negates the objections to the Stella Luna situation. The idea that there are 6 trailway buses coming there a day. I know I'm from a large city. I'm fairly new here, and 6 buses is not a lot of buses. So to me, I am not convinced, and I'm not asking it as a question. I'm just saying honestly, I see no problem. And I think that the Stella Luna becoming the transit hub would be a destination, would be charming and beautiful and historic. It opens the possibility of a transportation museum there, of artwork, of all kinds of interesting, inspiring things. So just want to register that.
If I could just say one thing real quick, I'm sorry. So there are 2 trailway bus bays there, but there are 7 city bus bays. So
That's, I'm from New York City. That's like not a lot of. Not a lot of buses.
That's the bus is turning movement is the hardest thing.
I'm not going to argue it. I'm just voicing my opinion that it would be ideal.
Absolutely. I just wanted to-
And not $7 million.
Yeah, so I've heard Stella Luna mentioned at least 4 or 5 times by, there's been a lot of discussion on that. So the city has been like very focused on combining trailways and the city buses together into one site. Like, right now they're separate. They've been separate for decades. The trailways has been down at the park garage, city buses on Main Street. So I really think the city should look at possibly keeping them separate. Yeah, I understand Wendell's point. You can't really bring the city buses down to Stella Luna. It's not big enough. There's too many issues, but what about possibly bringing trailways to Stella Luna? If not, if Stella Luna doesn't work, bring trailways maybe to somewhere else on Market Street. But I guess the other big concern I have, unrelated to Stella Luna, is now we're talking about a solid, or just like 1-story, just 1-story parking, just service parking, and it's 100 spots. I've heard. So how many, what if we didn't build the transit hub at that location? we would go from maybe 100 to 160. So, you know, that transit hub, even though we're getting a lot of grant money, it is costing us money. It's costing us maybe 60 spots because it's taking up very large footprint. So again, I'm saying, keep the city buses on Main Street. Find a smaller spot on Market Street for trailways.
One more question? Yes.
I just want to say I have never had a problem parking in Oneonta. Except maybe one time, and it wasn't a big deal. And if you want a pedestrian friendly city, you have to be willing to walk. We have to also obviously make allowances for people that are unable to walk. But for most of us, hey, walking is really good for us. You don't have to be right in front of your destination.
Okay, very good. Well, I want to thank everyone for the respectful nature of this dialogue. Very, very impressive, very Oneontan. So thank you very much for that. Council, we do have some business that we'll need to take care of. We don't want to.
I own the great big building and Chester.
You guys out. Stay.
He started.
Actually, I really like that last.
Yeah,
And probably maybe not only trailway, maybe the taxi. Yeah. There's opportunities.
Ask her, they're asking if you'll come to the, that's what they're.
Well, when I.
Good night.
It's on my. All right. Oh.
Literally was not throwing everybody out. Simply say we're moving on to.
I mean, I wanted to clarify that the nature of the SIP. So, if I think that's it's really just about prioritizing activity. But it would have decided that the additional would be made from like South Main, so it would just chance.
Yeah, this is still a public meeting. We're not.
We would have not certain.
Literally was saying thank you.
Just make sure you're not
Discussion. Folks, we do have a motion that Greg has written that I'd like to see. Speaker.
Okay, so as we talked about tonight, our next step in our phase project is demolition of the garage and the associated tank wall work and temporary paving on Water Street, basically the minimal scope required to bring the garage down and have a level lot. In order to do that, in addition to Wendell continuing to develop the bid specs and that package to go out to bid, we need to pass a resolution just memorializing the seeker determination, which in this case is a type 2 determination. We have a resolution to that effect. And the other motion that we wrote is really not required tonight. It's not an action. It's just sort of, if the council agrees, it's saying that we would like the city staff and Wendell as our extension of our staff to proceed with the demolition and the project as presented tonight, proceed in the direction that we've laid out. It's really not committing the council to anything. Obviously, the commitment would come when they're awarding a bid and setting a budget for that project, which presumably would be in early September for the demo.
Right. So with that, who's got?
Is there more discussion to be had? Anything before we read a motion?
Read the motion and we'll have discussion, yes.
Whereas the city of Oneonta is actively pursuing the continuation of the Market Street Transportation Improvement Project. And whereas the demolition of the existing parking garage and the subsequent redevelopment of the site are integral components of the Market Street Transportation Improvement Project. And whereas the existing parking garage has been ordered demolished by the city of Oneonta Board of Public Service in order to protect the public welfare. And whereas the city of Oneonta is utilizing some funds awarded by the New York State Department of State to complete the Market Street Transportation Improvement Project. And whereas the New York State Department of State requires a secret determination as part of the environmental review process, therefore be it resolved that the city of Oneonta hereby determines that this is a type 2 action as defined by New York State statute, section 617.5, sub 2. And be it further resolved that pursuant to section 617.5 sub C sub 2, this activity involves build, replacement, relocation, or reconstruction of a structure or facility in kind on the same site, including upgrading buildings to meet building, energy, or fire codes, and quote. And be it further resolved that the city of Oneonta is not required to conduct any further environmental review as a result of this type 2 determination. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately.
Right. So do I have a motion to approve? Move followed by Mark and discussion.
Because we don't have it in front of us.
No.
And again, I feel like our back's getting pushed against the wall. I don't understand if you had this resolution, why it could have been part of this packet.
God, I can speak to
So
that.
I just,
We wrote the actual verbiage of the resolution this afternoon. Our intent is to have this discussion tonight, and if the council was in agreement with the process to introduce the motion as opposed to.
so you wrote it this afternoon. It still could have been printed out and given to us. Really, seriously. I mean, that's,
I'll take that.
but this is starting to become a habit, Mark.
Okay.
It's becoming a habit that we don't get the stuff in front of us, and then we're getting it at the last minute, and then we're getting asked to make decisions. Come on, be fair to the council for a change, okay? Mark, seriously, this is becoming a history now.
Okay. Outside of that. Do we have any further discussion?
So sort of just that, a little bit, so this is just to declare ourselves with type 2 action for the secret. Who's the agency, the planning commission?
Seeker, normally in the seeker process, type 2 action would require a council. The reason for memorializing it in this motion and. I think the representative is to be able to send this to our planning agency that requires stuff on council resolution. It's typically not submit required, it's just a letter to file. That's why it's a little bit of a process.
Sure, so as part of the Department of State's work plan.
Sorry, just for the record, could you state your name?
Sure, my name is.
Who you're actually
Sure,
representing?
my name is Danny Lappin. I'm here representing the New York State Department of State, Office of Planning, Development and Community Infrastructure. I should also acknowledge that I'm the City of Oneonta Planning Commission Chair, so the delineation is, I'm here on state business tonight. My state badge. So to answer that question, and I also live at 3 College Terrace, Oneonta, New York, and our office is located at 1 Commerce Plaza in Albany, 10th floor. So to answer the question, as part of the Department of State's work plan, secret documentation is required. Demonstrate that all proper laws and regulations were followed over the course of the project. So that's why we require that for our file to demonstrate, project compliance.
And so just to background, if you don't have this, but I mean,
And I guess since I just heard it, within that, we're just approving the seeker action. We're not actually saying we're approving the demolition.
I would just say with Scott too, like, agenda items can either be voted for or against, but having them in advance to these are markets so that we can complete them. At least for me, for my understanding, so I would kind of spend that motion, not motion specifically, but of like going forward, it'd be great if even if you're not sure if we're gonna go in that direction, just having out paper would be helpful.
Further discussion. Was there?
So I guess I just want to throw this out one more time. So we're just voting on just the seeker action, Greg. That's what it is, meaning we're not saying yes, that we're agreeing to demolition of the building.
Right, the next motion we will read would be to say that. I'm not gonna read it now, but essentially that we authorize the city staff proceeding with. With that question, right now, that's not, we're not hiring a contractor, not operating a contract, we're not setting up a budget, it's just saying that this is the direction since presented to us tonight. This is the direction that the Department of State and other funding agencies are expecting us to pursue based on the timeline we shared with them to date. We just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page with where we're headed with the project. Of course, when we actually go to bid and have a low bidder and all of that, that's when we'll come back to the council for the vote to approve the contract and establish the budget.
So just kind of tying in. I'm looking at the piece of paper that we were given on May 15th from Wendell. The August 2022 Atlantic Testing Laboratories, the destructive and non-destructive concrete testing. I might have missed it. I apologize to the council if I've missed it. I don't remember getting receipt of that report. So have we been given that report?
The council is not gonna get that, that's a detailed report, not the type of thing that we typically are sending to the council.
So within that report, what does it say? Does it give that the concrete had degraded or?
Want to speak to that, was there Sean?
I actually don't have that in front of me, and so I'm not gonna verbatim or quote anything, but essentially they came out to do the structural testing to verify the integrity and inform the design. So they did what we call like concrete dragging, and from that you get like sound observations and you can understand the deterioration. They also poured several holes, which the DPW and their team sort of blocked off some areas so we could understand what was happening underneath each level. So things like that, to that nature, and then provided in that information supporting their testing.
So what was the overall findings? I mean, what did you have as a report given back then?
So that information, I think you said it was dated August, right? Is that what it was?
It says August 2022.
Yes. So that information actually informed the previous, the original schematic design, which included the rehabilitation to the garage. So that level of testing was done so that it would inform our structural engineers to the level of rehab required. So all of the recommendations and then therefore the costs that were done under the schematic design where we were rehabilitating the garage. It was gave you things like, yes, how much was once they poured it out, what was that deterioration? What did it look like? Where did what is condition is some of the steel, and what kind of reinforcement or other steel supports are required? So things like that was basically informative to then allow our engineers to take that information and say, okay, here's what we would need to do to rehab. And that's where we got into actually recognizing that we needed to actually like tear up each level and re-pour, and all the expansion joints were shot, and just that level of detail.
I guess I'll just say it out loud. that would have been extremely helpful for me and maybe the rest of the council to have known that back then. We literally spent 2 months talking about spending $16,000 to $24,000 to make repairs to a ramp. And if we had known that the concrete was to a point of degradation, that at that level, that would have been extremely helpful for our decision-making process. I mean, I'm looking at Mark and David. I mean, I'm thinking of how much we actually went back and forth between the three of us discussing this at length. I wanted to invest in the infrastructure. These guys were like, well, taking an opposite view of that. And, you know, and this is when it really caught my eye when I was rereading this from when we were given this on the 15th. That's just great information that the decision makers, that would have been helpful for us to have known that. I mean, we could have saved you a whole lot of time and effort in knowing that we're right at the end life of this garage. Right? So if we had known that back in August of 22, we could have had these discussions a while ago.
So the August 20, just to clarify, that report wasn't, didn't provide any information that would have caused the discussion for needing to demolish it at that point. It was the more recent information that I think you received in that memo based on work that and site visits and field work that the local structural engineer had done.
Yeah, that the previous one that Liz was saying gave us the understanding of what the rehab would. So, you know, as we talked about, I think we talked about in the previous board meeting where they had to come in and mill down the concrete slab and then report because it basically delaminated itself. I think that's the right term. And that's where that came from, things like that. So that starts to tell us. But
I'm just sharing this with you. It's just one voice, but from reading, going back and reading your reports that you've given us, there was 2 or 3 that we have been given as a council, and I've gone back and read them. I mean, you literally gave, and when I say you, I mean Wendell, gave a fair to good or good report. And then, you know, there's this concrete testing that happened in August 22 that we didn't know about. And again, I'm just saying from our perspective, it would have been very helpful if that had been shared with all of us. It would have helped us talk to our constituents a lot earlier on that, hey, there's a lot going on with the garage. Because that's the general consensus. I was actually surprised that there wasn't more, you know, questioning of how did we get to the one point. I think Sophie was the only one that pointed that how did we get here so quickly? I know I personally have heard that a lot.
Because I think it's worth echoing those questions for Sophie, just in a way that you know, it gave us more information and understanding about the past observation of the structure. So what does, or what has an inspection of the garage look like historically? Because I've been getting that question also. So it would be helpful for me to understand, like, have we ever had routine in, you know, professional inspections of the garage, or you know, I think what ended up shutting it down was just you know, like a visual inspection by DPW thing. Were those happening routinely, like understanding? Yeah, to have some background to be able to provide, because I think that is a question that's on people's minds.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a 50-something-year-old structure, they think they're deteriorating over time. So about the impact of salt and elements time. We did last did a major rehab, I think in 2011, Delaware Engineering at the time was the engineer on that project. He inspected it, you know, the scope of work included structural steel painting, some structural steel replacements, some structural repairs to some of the stair towers. We had not been doing annual inspections from 2012 up until when we hired Wendell to do this project. Obviously, they started 19, I guess, and started doing their investigations through the conceptual report, and you know, you kind of know the timeline from there. The visual inspections, I mean, DPW going through the garage every day cleaning, that was when they noticed the crack that had the settlement. It was a sort of a sudden change.
Right. Yeah, no, I think you're onto something then with, you know, if the garage was looked at as a then 45-year-old structure in 2018. To even present rehabilitation as a prospect, I think that it would have been hindsight, so it's worth nothing, but I think that it would have been helpful to understand fully the state that the garage was in before we got to this point. But again, that's not where we are now.
Further discussion.
Oh, yes. So Greg, first of all, my apologies if you think that was directed towards you. It wasn't. My frustrations with Mark. Okay, so just so you know, I want to apologize for that.
You should be frustrated with me, Scott, because I don't think that had anything to do with the mayor. But
So,
that's okay.
So just, I want to just go back to the resolution, because I guess I'm just not understanding, because I don't have it in front of me to read it. Can you read it to me again, please?
Whereas the city of Oneonta is actively pursuing the continuation of the Market Street Transportation Improvement Project, and whereas demolition of the existing parking garage and the subsequent redevelopment of the site are integral components of the Market Street Transportation Improvement Project. And whereas the existing parking garage has been ordered demolished by the city of Oneonta Board of Public Service in order to protect the public welfare. And whereas the city of Oneonta is utilizing some funds awarded by the New York State Department of State to complete the Market Street Transportation Improvement Project. And whereas the New York State Department of State requires a secret determination as part of the environmental review process. Therefore, be it resolved that the city of Oneonta hereby determines that this type 2 action is defined by New York State statute, section 617.5 sub C sub 2. And be it further resolved that pursuant to section 617.5 sub C sub 2, this activity involves both replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of the structure or facility in kind on the same site, including upgrading buildings and rebuilding energy required codes, end quote. And be it further resolved that the city of Oneonta is not required to conduct any further environmental review as a result of this type 2 determination. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately.
So it's either to rebuild, or rehabilitate, tear down, and replace is what we're.
Well, this is talking about what happens after the tear down. This acre is just about the tear down.
I have a related question. So it says in there that it's type 2 because we will repair, rebuild, or replace in kind. Right? Or am I understanding that?
It's not so much because we will repair, it includes the demolition. That's, that's just a generic. The language in the seeker law that is applicable.
Okay.
The intent doesn't obligate. The intent of the project under seeker is that the site will be used for parking as it's currently being used for parking. There might be an accessory structure like the transportation hub, which is essentially replacing the existing trailway structure. So the intent of seeker is to show that there's really going to be no new environmental impacts because the existing use of the land, the existing pavement, the existing, that's all kind of staying the same. We're not proposing to build like, you know, a 17-story skyscraper type building with, I don't know, like a trampoline park next to it. Like it's parking for parking, use for use. Like there might be a 2-story garage put there. There might be, you know, like however that project kind of pans out, the intensity of the use and the impact on the environment is essentially going to be the same.
Okay. Thank you. That was very helpful.
So, okay, I guess that raises another question. I'm sorry, Steve. So what if we change gears and we said, yeah, we're gonna tear this thing down, and all of a sudden we said, hey, there's a developer who wants to come in and do something else there. Does this?
So what would the something else be?
I don't know, say they wanted to put up a building. like an apartment.
Yeah, so basically what happens is we would sell them the land, if that's something we wanted to do, and then they would come up with their own project, and that would be an entirely new secret.
So this wouldn't hinder.
No,
any future.
no, this is just basically saying that we have a project right now that will ideally replace in some way the existing structure that's there. For the same purpose. If that scope were to radically change, or we were to sell that parcel when a new project came up. That would require a new review. That would be a different project. It would not be the current. Scope that we're looking at with Wendell or that we've looked at in the past. This is essentially saying, we do not believe our proposed project will have any impact on the environment that's not already occurring in that site under the current conditions. And therefore, we don't need to do elaborate environmental review because. Effectively, that review has already been done. We're watching it right now. Nothing will change. Or the change will be so minor, it won't have a negative impact on the environment.
If it was explained that way first, I would have got, sorry.
So you're on.
Are we voting right now?
Is there any further discussion on this? No, there's not. So if you would call the roll, please.
Councilmember Wolford.
Aye.
Councilmember Lewis.
Yes.
Councilmember Ritzberger.
Yes.
Councilmember Lombardi.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Falco. Aye.
And then
We'll wait.
Oh, no, that's awkward. Just keep talking.
Motion. So, you want to give us a little bit of setup on the motion and?
Yeah, I can kind of reiterate this before that. This motion is not to take any action. Normally, when we do a project, the motions are establish a budget. Enter a contract with so-and-so to do work. This motion is just to memorialize that we're on the same page with where this project is going with demolitions. The next step, we're gonna pursue that, understanding that we're gonna have to go to bid. Issue a contract, a motion to award a contract and to set up the budget. So.
Should we wait to?
I think we should.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she's gonna want to read it again anyway.
It's true.
Oh,
But we can wait, nonetheless.
He's probably gonna want to hear Greg's explanation too.
But what I was saying, as long as I could have everybody for a quick minute too, what I was saying in my opening remarks is we're going to have a sequence of discussions, because as we start to push through this thing, we're going to want to provide a scope of work. And as early an opportunity as we possibly can, but that's going to certainly take discussion. We need to take these things kind of in a progressive order. So it's going to be, they're going to be, I think, very interesting functions. Katie, you're back and we're going to read the motion.
Okay. Motion that the common council authorizing the demolition of the municipal parking garage and direct city staff to proceed with finalizing the design and bid documents with bid letting to occur as soon as practical.
All right. And so do I have a motion to approve? Followed by a bid. And do I have further discussion on this? Yes, Scott?
What are we bidding on? Have we made a decision? We're doing a garage, or we're doing a lot? So what are we
This
bidding
is
on?
bidding, demolition of the municipal parking garage, that's all. And as we talked about before, there's some ancillary work associated with demolition of the garage that must be done to have a secure site such as that retaining wall. But it's not, we're not deciding on parking lots or deck above that or transit or any of the streetscape work.
So this would include, because we're doing the demo, it would get the retaining wall.
Yeah, demo the retaining wall with the ramp going up from Water Street to the upper level now, and that goes away. Where that was becomes your second lane on Water Street, so it's a temporary paving there to basically make you two-way street on Water Street. With the turnaround at the end. I mean, it wouldn't be the full Water Street scope that's a completed project like the shows or anything close to that. It would be a temporary condition to open that project, whatever that is.
So Greg, saying yes to this means that we're committing at least $578,000 as city funding. Am I understanding that correctly?
It means we're committing to moving forward with demolition of the garage, but we don't know the cost until we bid. Based on the estimate, we're showing using up the DOS funding and using some additional city funds.
And the additional funds could be up to
That's what the estimate is. Up to, below, above.
Does this also include some of the nice utility relocation work?
This does not include that. We need to do some more communication with NICEAG to figure out what that number is that they need from us and have an agreement drafted so that we can pass another motion in a future council meeting to authorize them to proceed with their work to do the temporary relocation and then.
Yeah. My question is, does the work go with the work? Like, in order to demo the garage, does the nice work need to happen no matter what it costs? So we're, to kind of to your point, like, what are we authorizing right now? It's the demo of the garage and the related work in terms of the retaining wall and feeding and the nice, whether it's the temporary relocation, but temporary.
If we were to go forward with awarding bid and actually cost garage, the NICEAG power needs to be relocated first.
Right.
So this motion does not speak to the NICEAG issue.
Right.
There'll be another one before long, and before the garage demolition is awarded.
That's exactly my point. I just want to know, like, with this, we're setting in motion. Yeah, thank you. Is that all? Is that more?
That would need to be done in conjunction with demolition.
I think
I believe so. Just the NICEAG work.
Correct.
There is, when you're doing this, so there's a hydrant underneath the garage that's got to get relocated. I mean, there's ancillary work like that, there are parts of that that have to occur.
But it's not separated out in the cost estimates, right? That would,
No, it's all part of it. It's all part of it. Yeah.
So this is just to go ahead, get like send out bids.
Yes.
And then we can reject the bids if we don't like them, like we normally do. It's not committing to, yes, we're gonna tear this thing down tonight. It's. Okay.
yeah. The 578, is that coming from the general fund? Or is that? Yeah, where's that? I mean, I know that's not a definite number, where's,
Decided at the time how that budget's set up, like ultimately that could be covered by that $10 million bond authorization. Obviously, when we authorize bonds, we're not issuing the bonds at that time. That's done a little bit later on. I don't know if Ginny wants to speak to that at all, but something like $578,000, the city can pay for that and then cover that with the bond that's issued later on. If that's what we decide to do, it may be something where we decide to take that from our reserves. That's a decision to be made at that time, but look at the spreadsheet that I went through earlier, that shows that as being part of that overall $10,121,968 city contribution.
You're referring to, Greg, you're referring to this column all the way down through,
Yeah.
right, under city?
Yeah.
That Claire.
So this is all City Hook, right? This is all our.
Column that's labeled city, not the entire demolition. And to spend DOS funding, which we have about $2.5 million. The demolition.
and the next day we're up to $1 million.
Danny, did you want to bring in?
Yeah, so Daniel Lappin, Department of State. I, wanted to clarify, part of the intent of this motion was to demonstrate to funding agencies that the city intends to adhere to the timeline established in the contract agreement with the Department of State. So to give an update on that, the Department of State approved or tentatively has sent an unexecuted contract to the city, which authorizes a 1-year extension for the project, basically through the demolition timetable illustrated by Wendell. So this would, demonstrate in writing to this, Department of State that any Empire State Development too, that the city intends to follow its timetable for the project. How it does so, at least for the expenditure of DOS funds, because you'll know that the 1-year extension doesn't cover the construction. So just to show us that, the city intends to kind of keep up to its end of the bargain.
Further discussion, anyone? Okay, if there is no further discussion, we'll call the roll.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitford.
Yes.
Councilmember Pershing.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington.
Only because there's gotta be one to say, I'll say no.
Councilmember Papa.
Aye.
Motion passes. Which brings us to the end of what's going to be a continuing discussion, but the end of that discussion this evening. So thank you very much for that. Do we have any correspondence? I believe we did.
We have 2 items of correspondence, the place in your packets and email to you. Anybody want to read them? Understanding what bond resolutions are like now.
I would like it read.
From the Port on Main, partnered with Springbrook, dated June 14, 2023. Members of the city of Illinois Common Council, and Mayor Mike Durnick, regarding the parking garage and 12 private building. Port Block LLC and Springbrook have helped partner with the city of Illinois in the development of the Port on Main. Coming in the fall of 2023, the Port on Main will introduce 24 new upper floor housing units to the city, as well as the renovation of key infrastructure to support the 5 existing businesses that currently occupy the building. With a total investment of $9 million, our hope is that Port on Main contributes to a renewed sense of vibrancy in downtown, as well as providing a template for existing undeveloped buildings on Main Street. A significant part of our vision for the Port on Main is the building's access and connection to the surrounding streets, businesses, and parking. Port Block LLC partners with the city for access to the public walkway, some call it the arcade, that currently connects Main Street to the existing parking garage. From a legal standpoint, the building that pedestrians are able to walk through from Main Street to access the Birdway and parking garage is owned by Port Block LLC, which then grants the city an easement of use for a pedestrian pass-through. Because of the easement arrangement for the pass-through and the needs of future Port Block tenants for parking, the vision and plans for the parking garage are undeniably connected and of extreme importance to the Port on Main and Springbrook. In recognition of that connection, we feel that it is important to communicate our position to city council members, the mayor, and to community members. To summarize the position of Port Block Springbrook, supports demolition of the existing parking garage, supports demolition of the former 12 Tribes building on the corner of Chestnut Street Extension and Market Street, supports establishing an at-grade parking lot in the current footprints of both the current parking garage and 12 Tribes building, allowing for reestablishment of public parking in the short term. Supports reevaluation of the proposed transit hub regarding usage, location, scope, cost, and means to connect to any parking facility. Supports not investing in an elevator for what would remain as the parking garage. Rationale. Connecting the creation of a new parking structure garage transit hub with a developer who will build housing above is complex and will cost significant to the lengthy provided the entire process. Delays in moving forward urgently with the demolition of both the existing parking garage and 12 Tribes building allows both structures to continue to be signs of instability for downtown Oneonta. We encourage the city to explore a declaration of emergency demolition for the reasons of public safety. We are aware of this happening in many other cities in the capital region, for example. The creation of new parallel parking on Market Street will significantly benefit parking issues. Establishing at-grade parking in the footprint of both buildings is most certainly the lower cost alternative that can happen in the short term while preserving longer-term options. We are aware of this course of action taking place in Binghamton and many other upstate cities where legacy parking garages were causing the same issues. Those that need an elevator from what remains of the parking garage could be accommodated by use of the ramp from the parking surface in conjunction with the shared elevator that will be installed in the Port on Main in the summer of 2023. This elevator will allow pedestrians access between the Water Street and Main Street blocks. Port Block and Springbrook remain committed partners that are willing to participate in ongoing discussions and action plans with the city of Oneonta. We appreciate the efforts by city officials and common council members in finding the best, most cost-effective solutions for these immediate issues. Sincerely, Patricia Kennedy, Port Block and Springbrook. And from Gary Herzig, June 14, 2023. Dear Mayor Janik and Council Members Murphy, Davies, Phillips, Carson, Harrington, Rafter, and Falco.
I hope you do not mind me sharing the history of my thoughts on the challenge and opportunity presented by the current condition of our municipal parking garage. Having spent many years intensively involved with the project, I hope that my perspective might be found helpful. I also recognize that I may not have full knowledge of the current situation and that there may be matters worth getting out of there to negate some of those costs. A significant portion of the project could be financed with bonds. A $10 million 20-year bond at approximately 3% interest, very low by today's standards, could require an annual payment of nearly $750,000. Of course, a $20 million bond is reached by that amount. Please take the time to explore and understand what essential staff and services would need to be eliminated for us to meet these payments, especially considering that the 2023 budget already required more than $1 million to be taken from reserves to cover operating expenses. Impacts to quality of life and safety should be well understood before moving forward. History. We initially contracted with Glendale in 2017, to develop a feasible conceptual plan for both the parking garage and transit hub. For the end of 2021, 4 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars later, we received their final report along with financial analysis. I am attaching a link to the full 67-page report in the email. Most importantly, it stated the following. Estimated cost of repairing the parking garage, $4.54 million. When developing a cost estimate at this point in the overall process, we must make assumptions based on information at hand, our experience and professional judgment. Therefore, we recommend carrying at least a 25% design of market conditions contingency. In addition to the typical general conditions in the contractor overhead and profit due to the early conceptual nature of the design and planning process. Also included is a 4-page floor-by-floor analysis of the structural condition of the parking garage. All components are rated as either good or fair to good. Most importantly, while these are high-level estimates, there is no advisory or concern noted that the city should conduct a more detailed inspection prior to moving forward with the project. In a separate undated report attached in the email, designed to provide the city with a plan to pay for the costs, the garage renovation was estimated at $5,755,000. Again, there is no advisory or concern noted that the city should conduct a more detailed inspection prior to moving forward with the project. In February of 23, Glendale returned to compare the options of demolition versus rehabilitation, and again, there was no advisory or concern noted that the city should conduct a more detailed inspection prior to making a decision on how to move forward with the project. My thoughts. Given the inconsistencies and in my experience, some lack of responsiveness, I strongly recommend a second opinion from the independent and objective entity. And while I have no reason to believe that Glendale's potential to earn a considerable amount of money associated with the design and construction oversight impairs their analysis, I do think we have an obligation to do our due diligence. I have heard the argument that we can't wait because if we do, we will lose the $2 million ERF funds set aside for the garage rehabilitation. The cost to the city of not getting this project right would be much greater than $2 million. By returning the $2 million, if required, we can carefully investigate what side type of garage we need and be certain that the option of rehabilitation does not exist. This project will impact the people of Oneonta's quality of life and safety in many ways and for many decades to come. They will not remember us for delaying the project by a few months. They will never forget us for getting it wrong. A link to the full 67-page final report and an attachment containing the cost and payment analysis mentioned are included in the email. Thank you for taking the time to read this, and thank you for all your work here. That's it.
All right, I have no need for an executive session. There's a here that does either. I will just ask for not mention that time because we get that to me. No worries. I know everybody's busy. Good. And so with that, I'll say thank you. Yeah.
Let me just make a comment. I wanted to express my gratitude publicly to all of our city staff here that have put so many, I don't even know the number of hours, but so many hours to make this together. I sincerely appreciate it. And I think the city is better off because of all of this. Secondly, I just wanted to express my appreciation for John Rafter's years of service. I know you did as well. John was a big help for me running for council. I had just turned 26 and was not just Quincy for a couple months, but he was a great help in guiding me through the process, so he has to just thank him personally for his service.
Does anybody else have anything for the good of the order before we adjourn? Okay, I will see you all on. Before